Hey everyone, it's Peek. Welcome back to the channel today, and welcome back to another Pokemon Unite video here on the channel. Today I'm going to be covering an updated tier list for the recent balance patch, or the balance update that happened earlier this week for Pokemon Unite. There were a lot of changes to a number of Pokemon, and a lot of ones that I'm really happy about. So I wanted to just give you guys an updated tier list where I think each Pokemon stands currently in the meta from what I've seen. Played a number of matches since the balance update hit, so I definitely think this is where most of them will stand, and I think you guys will be pretty happy at where everything sits currently. So without further ado, just want to get into this, but before I do, definitely subscribe to the channel if you're into Pokemon Unite. You can always unsubscribe later if you lose interest in the game or lose interest in me, of course, but I am releasing a daily Pokemon Unite video, so you'll always have something to watch for the game in terms of guides, gameplay, tier lists, stuff like this, and just any sort of news on the game. I'm kind of your one-stop shop for Pokemon Unite, so definitely drop a sub if you're interested in that. But without further ado, let's just get into it. Start with Venusaur here. I'm actually going to put Venusaur in B currently because it was improved quite a bit. I previously had it in C. I had it as one of the lowest ranked Pokemon, but I think the balance update has really helped Venusaur kind of find a little bit of a niche currently in the meta picks. Now, I don't really think it's still as good of a pick as most of the other attackers, which you'll see in the future as I'm kind of, putting the different Pokemon here, but I really do think Solar Beam is very strong. This game is all about last hitting objectives, right? And Venusaur does that so well now with Solar Beam on such a low cooldown. It's really improved. I think if you haven't tried Venusaur with the new patch, you should definitely try it out. It feels very strong, very impactful, and it's just doing a lot more damage than it used to do, so I'm really happy to see that. So next is going to be Gengar. I'm going to put it in A. Its damage was nerfed a little bit. I previously, like maybe last week, would have put Gengar in S tier because I really just think the resets and the damage on the Hex Sludge Bomb combo were just absurd. It was doing so much damage, but now that damage is a little bit toned down, not a lot. Gengar still has the potential to 1v5 an entire team if you land a nice Sludge Bomb Hex combo, but it doesn't seem as ridiculous as it did before. I hesitate to put it in A because I kind of want to put it in S, but I think the Pokemon I've put in S really belong there, definitely for very solid reasons. But Gengar just having a very strong damage combo doesn't really warrant it going into S, because if you miss the combo on Gengar, you're kind of just out of luck. Like, you're not really doing that much for a team fight and stuff like that. So it's really dependent on hitting a Sludge Bomb, which can be dodged, I think, by players that have experience. And, that eject button always comes in handy to avoid a Gengar Sludge Bomb. So that's kind of why I put in A. Its damage is still very strong. I think Gengar players will still find that it does a lot of damage and isn't really changed that much from what it was at before. But it's just, it doesn't quite belong in S, in my opinion. So for Mr. Mime, I'm going to put that in B as well. I think I kind of want to put in A, but there's just some weaknesses that Mr. Mime has, namely that it has to be in melee range a lot of the time to, use its auto attacks, which are very strong, but it kind of gets punished when it goes into melee range. But the Confusion barrier combo that Mr. Mime has access to, if you get good at this, if you're a good Mr. Mime player with a lot of practice on the Pokemon and just spend a lot of time perfecting that combo, you can really turn team fights around. And Mr. Mime's Unite move is insanely good. It's just a pulsing stun over, I think like 5 seconds or so. It's crazy good. So don't sleep on Mr. Mime. Just because it's in B tier, I really think it's a very strong pick. It's doing so much damage right now for a support character. It's pretty wild. So definitely take a look at Mr. Mime if you haven't already. Snorlax, unequivocally S tier, the best defender, the best engaged, the best kind of just all-around support character for your team. Snorlax does such a good job with Heavy Slam block combo in just shutting down entire teams. It's very good for counter engages as well, and just protecting your backline carries, or your frontline carries. Wherever they're at, Snorlax is able to help out an entire team. And really, like, I honestly think right now Snorlax is probably the strongest Pokemon, and I hesitate to say that because you'll see what I think about the strongest Pokemon in a few here. But Snorlax is just so impactful in team fights, and that's what really matters in this game, right? Fighting over objectives, winning the team fights, being able to secure objectives. Snorlax just does such a good job at zoning teams off of objectives so that your teammates are able to take it very quickly and stuff like that. Snorlax is just like, if you don't have Snorlax on your team, what are you doing, basically, at this rate? If you're running a 5v5, like an organized team, you definitely need a Snorlax on it. It's a staple pick right now, and it's just so impactful. So, Gardevoir I'm going to put in B tier. And that's kind of sad for me because I really do like Gardevoir so much. But, unfortunately, right now, with the way the game is kind of played, so much revolves around the first Dreadnought fight that you're typically level 6 Kirlia by the time that fight starts, and you basically just have one ability that does damage. Nothing else you can do really does damage, and Gardevoir in general just takes a bit too long to get online. You have to get level 10 before you unlock your Unite move, which is really tough as someone who is in a lane. You probably won't get your Unite move until like 4 minutes left, 3 minutes left sometimes. I mean, you can get it as early as like 6 minutes left in the game, but it's a bit of a stretch, you know? And you can't always guarantee it, and I think especially in solo queue, Gardevoir struggles to kind of keep up. I think in a more organized team play setting, Gardevoir definitely has a spot for sure, but yeah, I gotta put in B, unfortunately. Another person to go in B, or another Pokemon to go in B, is going to be Absol. I think they didn't really change Absol that much with the balance patch. They buffed the moves that nobody really uses, but in terms of Pursuit Psycho Cut, which is the build that we're seeing most people use, the damage wasn't really buffed too much. I think you could warrant trying the other moves now that they're buffed, because they did see a substantial damage increase. But I think that Absol, while very strong, and again, like, you shouldn't sleep on the B tier, I just think it, you know, doesn't do as crazy amounts of damage as, you know, like a Gengar or stuff like that, in terms of team damage. But Absol can really do a great job at outplaying enemies. The damage is very deceiving, and especially like if you crit on Absol, which has, you know, of course, the passive Super Luck, which makes it crit more than usual, more than like any other Pokemon in the game, you're doing crazy damage. But, you know, you're obviously very dependent on hitting those critical hit abilities and auto attacks, so it's a bit difficult to justify putting Absol in A, though I really think it's kind of like a B plus, A minus kind of thing, you know? I think Absol's really good. Definitely try it out if you haven't. So we're going to see our first C tier here with Garchomp. The big issue with Garchomp is that it doesn't do anything that any other character doesn't really do in the game currently. There's so many better all-rounders in the game, and Garchomp obviously evolves very late in the game. It suffers from a similar issue as Gardevoir, where it takes a long time to get online. But the issue with Gardevoir is it actually has a very strong Unite move. It has a very strong kit at the end of the game. Garchomp is also very strong at the end of the game, but it really suffers from, like, once you've used either Dragon Rush or Dig, you're kind of out of engage tools. You're out of tools that allow you to chase enemy Pokemon down and attack them. As Garchomp, you're really just dependent that the enemy team is going to stick together in a giant blob where you can just auto attack them for free, which really doesn't happen in higher level matches, or just like in general. I don't think people typically really stand together and clump as a group. And, you know, if they do, Gengar is gonna shred them a lot faster than a Garchomp's going to, you know? There is lifesteal, or sorry, not lifesteal, but just like HP regen on your auto attacks with Garchomp, but that's about all it has going for it. I think I would really like to see a buff to Garchomp and something to really make it have more sticking power to targets, whether that be an increased movement speed buff to it. I think that would actually really help it stick on to targets better, or something like that, like an in-combat movement speed buff I'd like to see. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to put Garchomp in C tier. I really like Garchomp as a Pokemon. I would just, yeah, unfortunately, it just doesn't warrant any higher tier currently, in my opinion. So the Pokemon of the hour and the Pokemon of the month, Lucario. In my opinion, very S tier Pokemon. Power Up Punch is ridiculous. It is such a broken move, in my opinion. The fact that you can, once you've gotten the upgraded version of Power Punch, you can have the unstoppable status whenever you want. And the thing about Power Punch is you can cancel the move, and it just goes on a 1 second cooldown before you can use it again. So literally, like, anytime someone's engaging on you, you literally just hold Power Up Punch. You're unstoppable for the entire time you're holding that move. It's just like, it's completely broken. Not to mention the fact that Power Up Punch is basically It's a Unite move level damage. It just like, it really secures last hits on Dreadnoughts, Rotoms, Zapdos especially, you know, like there's no Pokemon that does last hitting objectives or anything really better than Lucario. And of course, Pokemon Unite, the name of the game is last hitting the objectives. Getting the last hit is all that matters. It doesn't matter who did 99% of the damage to the Zapdos. It matters who gets that last hit, right? So Lucario just does that better than any Pokemon in the game currently. And yeah, that's all there is to say about Lucario. It has a very strong early game. It has a very strong late game. It never falls off. The damage is always there. The boosted auto attacks for Lucario are just ridiculous. There's nothing bad about Lucario, really. Like, that's the funny thing about it, and that's why it's just S tier. There's literally nothing bad about this Pokemon. If you have a Lucario on your team, you're just better off than a team that doesn't have it. So that's Lucario. Definitely S tier. So for Crustle, I'm gonna have to put it in B tier, but I'm gonna put it at the higher end of B tier here, because I really do think Crustle can perform. Crustle is insane, actually. Its passive allows you to get extra levels of defense and special defense as you get lower HP. So like, the lower HP you are, the more you're able to survive. So it's just like very deceiving. It's very difficult to kill a Crustle. And Crustle with X Scissor and Shell Smash or Rock Tomb, honestly, like either one just is capable of doing crazy things, especially in the Zapdos pit. At the end of the game, if you land a 4 or 5 man X Scissor, you can just take an entire enemy team out of a fight while the rest of your team just blows them up with their different abilities and stuff. Crustle is a playmaker. So again, I think it's really one that kind of hovers between B and A. I want to give it a B plus, but you know, I think I just have to kind of leave it balanced as it is right now in terms of like where the Pokemon sit on the tier list. So I'm going to leave it in B, but do not underestimate Crustle. It's, like I said, one of the biggest playmakers in this game. X Scissor is a crazy tool that just like really just really just makes plays like no other Pokemon. So, well, besides Snorlax, of course. Snorlax is the best playmaker, but Crustle is really good as well. So moving on, we got Greninja, and I'm actually going to move Greninja up from B to A, which I'm really happy about as a Greninja player, as most of you know me for. And I think with the Cinderace nerfs, let's just address Cinderace right now as well. I'm going to put Cinderace in A as well. I think we can talk about these two at the same time. Cinderace and Greninja serve a very similar role. They're the hyper scaling damage of the team, and they really shine at the end of the game once they've gotten a lot of levels, a lot of experience. And once you're sitting around level 13, 14, 15 as a Greninja or a Cinderace, you're doing a ton of damage. For Greninja specifically, I've been really liking Surf recently. I think it does a great job of, similar to Lucario, but not as good, obviously, at last hitting objectives. It's very important, obviously. Like I said, the name of the game for Pokemon Unite is last hitting. And getting that secure on those objectives. So Greninja just does that super duper well. Cinderace, I still think even after the nerf, and Cinderace was nerfed quite a lot. Like, its damage was reduced across the board. They even lowered its attack stat. It was one of the only 2 Pokemon that had its stats actually changed. The other one being Wigglytuff. And Cinderace is still really good. Like, Cinderace's passive does percentage damage once you fill up those little ember bars above the enemy that happen when you hit them with auto attacks or abilities. So I really just think Cinderace is still probably performing a little bit better than Greninja. But I think now that Cinderace is kind of toned down, there is room for Greninja to shine now, which I'm really happy about personally. So yeah, that's where I think both of those fall. They really fill a similar role, but Greninja obviously is a lot more of an aggressive playstyle, where Cinderace kind of really has to be in the back, maybe protected by an Eldegoss or something like that. So that's kind of how you play those, but definitely A tier on both of those. Very solid picks. If you really like ranged attackers, definitely look at these two. Moving on, we got Talonflame in C tier. Unfortunately, I think even with the buffs, I really don't think Talonflame, even though I've seen it do quite well in a few games, I kind of wanted to put it in B, but here's going to be like our first kind of C plus B minus tier for Talonflame. So I'll just kind of put it at the top of the tier list here for C. I really think Talonflame can definitely have some high impact in the hands of the right player, but I really just think there's better options right now. There's a Gengar, there's other junglers like, you know, Greninja and Cinderace who can go in the jungle now and do very well. I just don't think Talonflame still, like, Maybe it could use a bigger damage buff, but I think the biggest issue with Talonflame, especially against people who know what they're doing, is that Talonflame has the lowest HP in the game. It is super frail. It gets one shot by almost everything. Like your ranged carries at the end of the game, a Cinderace or a Greninja, they're going to shred Talonflame in like 3 auto attacks. So it's really tough to justify Talonflame for like an end game Pokemon. Obviously, its whole style is designed around getting in and getting out and not getting hit, but it, you know, in this game you're gonna get hit sometimes, and that's just how it is. So unfortunately, I'm going to leave Talonflame at C tier right now. I hope to see it kind of perform in the future, because I would like to see that playstyle rewarded a lot more that Talonflame has, but I just don't think it's there right now. So moving on, we got Charizard in C tier. Again, this is a Pokemon that was buffed quite a lot, but I just don't think it still is performing as well as other Pokemon in its class, such as like a Lucario or, you know, other damage dealers. I think even Venusaur is doing a better job at what Charizard kind of does right now, which is just chasing people down. Obviously, being able to move while auto attacking is completely strong, but Charizard just doesn't feel as impactful as it could. They buffed Fire Blast a lot, reduced the cooldown on that. They buffed Flamethrower a lot, but I think most people are going Fire Punch, which was buffed slightly as well, but it's just, again, it's not performing as well as personally I'd like to see it perform. I think we'll probably see some future buffs to Charizard. The thing that kind of makes this maybe B tier is that Charizard's Unite move is super duper good. You can't get hit in the air during Charizard's Unite move, contrary to popular belief. I think a lot of people actually don't know that you are not invincible while you're uniting. But it's just, that's like all it has going for it currently. Because I just think the damage buffs that I got from the balance patch is just really not helping it kind of perform like it needs to. So moving on, we got Zeraora in A tier. I still think Zeraora is really strong. They nerfed the Unite move slightly, but like honestly, it still does a ton of damage. Zeraora is really unchanged other than the 500-ish damage nerf to its Unite move, which was doing about 3,000 damage before. So like 2,500 HP when like you're looking at characters like Greninja and Cinderace who have about like, I think like 3,500 HP at the end of the game. You're still just one-shotting people with Zeraora and just blowing up teams with Discharge. They buffed Wild Charge a little bit, but I still think Discharge is the better ability because they didn't nerf it at all. So yeah, if you haven't tried Zeraora, it's a free Pokemon for everyone. I think you'll find it incredibly fun and still super powerful. So moving on, we got Eldegoss, and it's kind of like an in-between for this one, because I do think like in organized teams, there maybe isn't as much room to pick Eldegoss now, but I still am going to put Eldegoss in S tier. I think the ability to sustain your team, even though it was nerfed across the board, its shields were nerfed, the heals were nerfed, and its Unite move heal was nerfed substantially, but it's still doing crazy amounts of healing. It's still able to keep an entire team alive, just like no other Pokemon is. I still think Eldegoss is an S tier. And until maybe we see a different healer such as Blissey, which, you know, hopefully we see in the next couple months here, come out in the game, I think that Eldegoss is just really strong at keeping its team alive, and just the fact that you can shield everyone and heal everyone on your team without even having to aim anything, it's S tier. It's totally S tier. So that's where I'm putting that. Cramorant, I'm going to put an A tier. Cramorant's Unite move is just crazy. If you use it correctly, you can completely zone an enemy team off an objective. Cramorant is so good right now. I really think in the hands of a good player that knows what they're doing and knows like when to go in and how to keep their distance as Cramorant, you can actually carry a game. Cramorant has one of the highest carry potentials, in my opinion, in the game currently. Moving on, I'm going to put Pikachu in B tier. It's just not performing as well as, for example, a Cramorant, which kind of like falls in the similar tier as Pikachu. Pikachu has a very strong early game with Electro Web, unlocking at level 3. A ranged snare is, you know, always ridiculous. So I think a lot of people get frustrated laning against a Pikachu in the early game, but Pikachu just kind of has a damage fall off near the end of the game, where it's just not able to do as much, even as like a Gardevoir, Venusaur, stuff like that do special attack damage. And I really just think there are better options, personally, for where people would normally pick Pikachu. So, moving on, we just got a few more here. We got Alolan Ninetales. That is going to be our S tier attacker here. Alolan Ninetales' ability to freeze enemies, to CC them just by auto-attacking is broken. It's so strong. Aurora Veil Dazzling Gleam is a very potent combo. Blizzard maybe can even be justified from time to time as well, but I do think Aurora Veil is just so much better for giving that damage reduction to your entire team, especially when team fights are very centered around small objectives in this game. Dropping in Aurora Veil and basically reducing the damage that all of your teammates are taking, it's so good. It's just so good. So yeah, Alolan Ninetales freezes enemies. Passive is insanely good. It's just all around a very strong Pokemon, just in terms of team utility, and it does crazy amounts of damage. You can 1v1 someone under Aurora Veil, and they're just like never expect it. You're just freezing them constantly, doing a ton of damage with your empowered auto attacks. It's just crazy good Pokemon, you guys. So definitely try it out if you haven't. Last of these three, or sorry, the first of the last three is going to be Wigglytuff, and I will put that in A tier here. Wigglytuff got a huge buff. Its HP was increased by 2,000. Both of its defenses and special defenses were increased by about like 250%. It's just an absolute tank now. And you're seeing a lot more people playing Wigglytuff because Sing is such a good move. It really feels like Wigglytuffs are just not dying anymore because the defense and special defense was increased so much, and they just got a huge buff to their HP. This is exactly what I wanted to see in terms of changes made to Wigglytuff to make it more playable, because before we had it in like C tier, I believe, way at the bottom, because it didn't do enough and it just died so early. But now that it's been buffed so much to be so much more tanky, it's just so good. And the early game damage of Jigglypuff, like the level 3 damage of Jigglypuff, is like actually unmatched. Like it's crazy. You guys should definitely try it out. Wigglytuff's definitely A tier, like a very strong A tier, like A+ currently. Very, very strong. So for Slowbro, I kind of bounce between A and B, but I still think Slowbro as a playmaker and just as like a crazy good sustained tank in this game does a great job, and that's why I'm going to put it in A tier. I really like where Slowbro is right now. Surf is insanely good move, probably top 5 moves in the game, as I've said in previous videos, and its Unite move is very good. It gives a huge shield and huge HP buff to Slowbro, to where I'm sure many of you have noticed that just like it's literally impossible to kill during its Unite move. Like no matter how much damage you're throwing into a Slowbro, the amount of HP and shield it gets from its Unite move inherently, plus the shield from Buddy Barrier if you're running that, which of course you should on Slowbro and almost every other Pokemon. It's just ridiculous. So yeah, Slowbro feels really good right now. Definitely A tier, I think. And yeah. So last but certainly not least is going to be Machamp, and I'm going to put it about like here in the middle of the A tier. Because I think Machamp is very good. Getting submission at level 5 just makes Machamp the best like early game ganker in the game. The ability to run in, CC a Pokemon, grab them with increased movement speed, and just suplex them back to your team so they can do damage to that Pokemon is just, it's so good. And Machamp late game is also like very, very strong scaling, very like it has a lot of moves that increase its critical hit rate, so that also helps. You know, you might want to run a scope lens on this Pokemon just to get that extra damage. When you do critical hit, it's going to do a ton of damage, especially at the end of the game, because of course scope lens scales off of extra physical attack, which, you know, you're gonna have a lot at the end of the game once you're like, you know, level 13, 14, 15. So Machamp is just really good right now. Very solid Pokemon. It was nerfed slightly. I don't think the nerf was warranted at all. I think Machamp is in a really good spot because it can be punished. As you know, you have to play aggressively as Machamp, which can get you punished from ranged attackers and stuff. So I really liked where Machamp was. It was nerfed slightly with its cross chop damage, but really the thing about cross chop is it's more used as a dash or utility more than actual damage. You really just want to be like using your auto attacks more than anything as Machamp. So really not a huge nerf to Machamp, and I still think it's very, very strong A tier. So that's where I think things sit right now. I'm really excited for, you know, these upcoming Pokemon like Blastoise, and it sounds like Blissey has been data mined, so we will see those in the near future, hopefully. But yeah, this is where I think the Pokemon stand right now. Definitely try these S tier Pokemon out if you haven't already, but I'm pretty happy with the balance currently. I was happy to see Cinderace toned down a little bit to make room for Greninja and, of course, other attackers like Cramorant. Of course, I do want to kind of see changes made to sort of take these three out of C tier. Because, I mean, ideally we'd have a game where, you know, every Pokemon's playable and stuff, but honestly, I'm not sure how viable that is in a game like this. There's probably always going to be best picks, especially with Pokemon like Ninetales and Snorlax and Lucario, who just have such very, very impactful kits. Their passives are good, their moves are good, their damage is good. You know, it's like, it's hard to nerf them when like the inherent moves of these Pokemon are just broken in and of themselves and very impactful. So personally, that's where I see things right now. If you guys enjoyed the video, definitely drop a like if you want to see future tier lists for future updates and future balance patches that happen. Of course, I'll always give you guys the latest news on Pokemon Unite, so stay subscribed to the channel and comment down below which of these Pokemon you haven't tried yet and which you'd like to try in the future. I think that'd be cool to see. So anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate the support on all these videos. It's been insane, and yeah, just from the bottom of my heart, genuinely thank you. Like, it's just been so fun interacting with you guys in the comments and just building a community here. So join the Discord if you hadn't already. A lot of lovely people there, and follow me on Twitter. That's the best place to get updates on this game, and as well as what's happening in terms of live streams, videos for me, and stuff like that. So anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.